Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right. So last week we reflected on and discussed the benefits of bodhicitta, the great compassion, cultivating the great compassion of bodhicitta. We're moving into now the methods. There's two that are commonly taught in Tibetan tradition about how we cultivate a heart that has a desire to benefit all sentient beings, removes the suffering of others, to really dedicate our lives to helping others be free of suffering. So, tall order. Uh, and there's starting points. And so in the text, we're at this point of these two methods. I'll pop that up. I think I'll put, yeah, there it is. Yeah. So the first of these two is sometimes called the sevenfold cause and effect instruction. The other method is, well, the other name is 7 causes, 1 result. 6 causes, 1 result. Yeah, 6 causes, 1 result. Or 7-point cause and effect. So at each stage, you create the cause for the next stage. At the end, bodhicitta. But technically, there's 8. Because 0 is equanimity. So really building a good foundation to begin this process. Let me just get this little pop-up out of the way. Okay. Having considered how all these miserable beings have been my mothers and have raised me with kindness again and again, I seek your blessings to develop effortless compassion, like that of a loving mother for her precious child. And that's from the first Panchen Lama. And so right there is capturing this essence of seeing all beings as family, as having been our mothers, have giving life to us and us caring for others in that same regard. And there's a process for that to get into. But I think they're going to first just begin with an outline and then the basis of equanimity. But on just a very simple, straightforward note, I find it really helpful to recognize that everything I have in my life is because of others. Everything about me is because of others. People are giving me life all day long. And, roads we get to drive on, the cars we drive in, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the education we get, every aspect of anything about my life is only arising in dependence upon countless others and people I've never met. And never met the first Panchen Lama, but I just read his words. And so now they're in my life. That everything I know is because of others. And that's, for me, this really tangible way that I can start to recognize others as giving life to me, giving birth to me in a sense. There's a strategy of kind of reflecting upon rebirth and how many times and so forth, which comes later. But just recognizing, wow, even the people I don't like are helping me have a life. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? And people I never met, paid for things that I get to use and uh, built this building that we get to be in. It's quite remarkable. It's easy to forget, because I got me and mine. But we don't exist that way. That's not how we exist. We only exist in dependence upon others, and we're always in a state of becoming, right, moment to moment. And everyone's offering us an opportunity to grow, to understand, to bring meaning to our lives. So they're giving rise to this incredible opportunity all the time. Yeah. So let's go back to the text here then. So why wouldn't we want to help them? So there are two main methods for cultivating bodhicitta that developed in the Sanskrit tradition. The first of these, the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, involves contemplating how others have been kind and helpful to us as a basis for generating gratitude, loving kindness, compassion, and ultimately bodhicitta. We thus aspire to attain enlightenment in order to repay their kindness in the most sublime way. The other method, equalizing and exchanging self for others, is presented in the next chapter. The sevenfold cause and effect instruction actually comprises 8 steps. Yeah, there it is. Because initially one should meditate on equanimity, an even-minded attitude towards all beings. If one has not already cultivated that quality, that is followed by 7 steps. The first 4 are causes for the 5th step, compassion, and the last 2 are effects of compassion. This is the reason for calling it a cause and effect instruction. The 7 are as follows. I feel like I didn't read a sentence right there. If one has not already cultivated that quality.
It's just that's the.
Yeah, okay. The sevenfold cause and effect instruction actually comprises 8 steps because initially one should meditate on equanimity, an even-minded attitude towards all beings, if one has not already cultivated that quality. Okay, so you should do that first. Okay. And then they're going to list. So basically, one leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. You know, first we're recognizing the value of others and how they've given life to us. We recall their kindness. We want to repay their kindness. And then great love happens. You know, this great love for all these beings, and out of that love, this compassion. You know, that we don't want to see them suffer, and then this resolve to dedicate our lives to not allowing them to suffer. And then bodhicitta arises in that way. To use our life in ways that benefit others. So there's meditations on each level and practices. So initially, it's best to meditate on 1 step per session to get a deeper experience of it. Later, when you are more familiar with all these steps, you can combine 2 or more per session, even do a quick scan of all 7 to keep them fresh in your mind. I've typically been taught to just until you get a level of 1, you have some sense, you know, you don't go to the next. You really build upon each other. So let's start with equanimity. Equanimity is an even-minded attitude that regards all beings as equally deserving of our respect and concern. We need to develop this attitude as a basis for cultivating loving kindness and compassion in the same way that it is necessary to make the ground smooth and level before constructing a building on it. Without equanimity, our love and compassion may be partial, reserved only for select people, such as our family and friends. And so, just taking a moment there. The idea here and what we're going to unpack is we tend to have people in 3 categories, right? We have the people we like, we have the people we don't like, and there's a lot of people in between we don't really care much about. We don't really know them. They're strangers. So often it's labeled friends, enemies, strangers, but it's really much more nuanced than that. It's, there's people I like to be around. They benefit me in some way, or I just like them. There's some people I just really don't want to be around, don't like, and have some adverse feelings towards. And then there's just this whole range of people that, we don't really know that well. I mean, you don't know the clerk maybe at the grocery store, so you don't have much of a feeling one way or another. And they don't seem to be that important to us. But I'm going to tell you right now, you should treat the clerks, especially at truck stops, very well. I got a free cup of coffee just the other day on my travels out of that. Not that that's what I was shooting for, just a perk. I used to travel a lot. That used to happen quite a bit, just because, late at night they're running the thing, and you just acknowledge them. How you doing? What's going on? And you look at them, and next thing you know, they're saying, coffee's on me today. Sometimes a donut. Yeah. Uh, but it hadn't happened in a while. I haven't traveled like I used to when I was traveling, especially as a monk. And but it was funny. It's like, just have a cup of coffee. I'm like, oh, that's been a while. But people really appreciate that we see them, that we look them in the eye, that we, acknowledge them. And, there's this whole framework of people that are strangers. And, we walk by them on the street, and they're humans just like me. We drive with them in the highways, and they're providing a safe drive for me because they're paying attention. We're all in our little bubbles, except everyone in those little bubble has a family and worries, concerns, hopes, aspirations. They're just all around that. We're all, trying to stay in our lane, so that we can all get where we're going to go. And, it's our safety depends on all these people we don't know, except for that one guy, zips right in, and, and then, yeah, we gotta care for them too. And so there's this process, I'm sure she's probably unpack it, of recognizing that the person I don't like is just as valuable as the person I do like. And then this whole bandwidth of people in between that are meaningful, and we can recognize their value, and we want to try to equalize that. We'll see what she has to say about that. I did not pre-read the chapter, so I'm curious what we'll be talking about. All right. So in this meditation, we will examine our usual way of relating to others, liking some people, disliking others, and being indifferent to the rest. All right, good. I was on the right track. So why are we so biased? Is that the ideal way of treating people? If not, is there a way to change it? It's important to accept that we can change our attitudes. To share a personal example, I once felt a lot of anger for George W. Bush because of the wars he started. Then I heard the Dalai Lama say in a public talk that he liked George Bush. He didn't like his politics, but he liked him as a person because he was very down to earth. That got me thinking that maybe he wasn't such a bad person. He was probably kind and loving to his family, friends, and pets, and most likely had other good qualities as well. I also found it helpful to reflect that his presidential decisions were not entirely his making, but resulted from numerous causes and conditions that in turn came from different places and people. My mind began to soften toward him. Later, I heard that he likes to paint. Looking at some of his paintings online, including a portrait of the Dalai Lama and one of his little white dog, helped me see him as just another human being trying to find happiness and avoid suffering. When I heard that his mother passed away in 2018, I spontaneously felt compassion and the wish to reach out and comfort him. This was a powerful experience of how the mind can change. Feeling compassion for a person who has perpetrated harm, however, does not mean we condone their actions. We can regard destructive behavior as wrong while keeping our heart open to the person. If we feel angry, we can use the antidotes, such as those explained in chapters 13 and 20, or other methods that we find effective. to manage our feelings and work on cultivating opposite states of mind, such as compassion, forgiveness, and love for everyone involved. Another helpful strategy is to mentally separate the person and their behavior. They are not one and the same. And then do what we can to stop the harmful behavior, or at least express our disagreement with it, while extending compassion to the person. Contemplating impermanence is also helpful to recognize that no one acts harmfully 100% of the time. I think I sleep sometime, right? Who knows what they're dreaming now? Contemplating impermanence is also helpful. Okay, we recognize no one acts harmfully 100% of the time. Everyone has good qualities and sometimes engages in positive behavior. So let's just, pause on that. Because that's the big challenge, right? The people we don't like. It's a little easier to be around people we kind of know or don't feel like. You should get to know your mailman. Or his name's Jeff. For so many years, you don't really talk to him, but you see him every day, brings mail. And it's kind of nice. Yeah, we know Jeff. Yeah. So, but these people that have harmed us and done harmful things, you could just feel the tension in the body. And so the second strategy of separating actions, behaviors from the value of a human being or another type of being, animal, whatever, separating those actions from the value of a person. That's a strategy I find helpful. But I also find helpful that I just have this belief. I don't know I can scientifically prove it. There is some research that every being, every human being especially, has innate goodness. They're doing research on that, innate goodness. And what happens is we have this innate goodness, and then depending on sort of the genetics that have been passed down through time, the way that karma is imprinted in us, our genetic structure, our parents, the traumas that have been faced through generations, or the atmosphere that I grew up in, or the culture I grew up in, and I'm going to start having experiences and beliefs around sources of happiness and sources of suffering, what it's like to be okay. And maybe I was beaten and abused as a child, or maybe I was loved and cared for. There's usually a mixture in between. That I'm going to start developing coping mechanisms, behaviors, and beliefs around, what's going to make me happy and what's okay and what's not okay. And that's going to be, if I'm born into a family that is, a white supremacist, or am I born into a family that's a tree-hugging hippie, or am I born into a culture that is really family-based and oriented of generational things, which we don't have much in the U.S. And, different cultures are going to have different aspects. People down south, very different things. Some people raised around hunting. Some people, my friend's daughter was saving the snails at 5 years old. Don't kill the snails, Uh, and, so we just have this mixture, but everybody at their core, is trying to find some happiness, trying to avoid suffering. And then, the conditioning's there. And all of this is in flux. So we can identify unhealthy, harmful behaviors and seek to address those. But knowing that underneath that is another human being just like me, who's just trying to find okay, and their set of circumstances different. I have so many examples in my own life that have helped me. I used to work with adolescents in substance abuse treatment in poverty LA area. A lot of gangs and gang violence, and it was one of the big, really tough gangbangers that came in. It was an interesting guy, but when I read his background, and the torture that he had to survive from his uncle at a young age. It was horrific to read the case file. There's this man, this young man, he's a teenager then, who had been subjected to that, right? So when you read what they went through, then, you know, you see what's happening, right? As opposed to you just meet someone and they're mean, they're in a gang, they're tough, and wow, this kid had to survive this horrific thing to be here. Uh, anyway, we taught him how to play volleyball. He's pretty good at it. We went to the championships in our county placement facility team. Um, but you give him some direction, some opportunity. He's a very different being. And so, in a situation like that, we start to recognize that, well, in my own life, I've done a lot of harmful things. Am I that person? I've also done some kind things. Am I that person? Or in my own life, am I a human being who have done harmful things and helpful things? Lived through traumas and challenging things and have also been loved and cared for. And all of these have contributed to who I get to be today. And so is everybody else. And when we start to understand that, then that becomes much more helpful in terms of equanimity. Like, just because I was loved and cared for a little bit more than someone else and didn't have to face that abuse does not make me better than someone who had, right? It makes me more fortunate, but not better than. And so working with equanimity and starting to recognize the harm that people do, it's coming from somewhere. And they're still accountable for the behavior. But in there is that same person has the capacity for kindness, for care. Um, uh, Usually around this topic, I mentioned that I go once a year. Well, I didn't go the last couple of years. I tried to a men's retreat. I go to a men's retreat. These are people in Narcotics Anonymous, and they have, survived prisons, penitentiaries, addiction, and many of them have done a couple decades. And we do a retreat in Malibu. It's actually quite nice, and these guys they hug you, and you hug them, and they say, "I love you," and I say, "I love you too," and these are. We're usually up around dinner time afterwards talking about how to be a better parent, how to be a better partner in our relationships. Maybe they'll teach me. I'm working on it. And yeah, many prayers for them. Uh, so and you're sitting around, but these also were people who you would not want to meet in an alley, 20 years ago. And now they're the most loving, caring people you can meet, right? And they showing up and they're working on meditation and prayer and their spiritual path uh, and helping others find their way to recovery. 250? No, 120. I'm exaggerating. 120. Yeah. And so uh, someone that we meet who is like this today may be very different tomorrow. And it goes the other way too. Someone pretty caring and loving today can go down a pretty dark place and be pretty harmful tomorrow. And so whoever we're meeting, we're only meeting them at a moment in their life. And how would you like to be judged by a moment in your life? That was a good moment. Because there are a lot of moments and they didn't look too good, and then that's the imprint, right? And then that's what happens, right? Then we stick a label on that person, and they're like this, and I can't see anything else. I can't see, as Venerable was pointing out, that she was talking about the good qualities of George Bush, right? I can't see any of those good qualities. I can't see it. They, uh, maybe help their grandmother out or take care of, their grandkid, because somebody else can't. I don't see any of that. I just see this one behavior and I label them. And every time they're around, uh, that's who they are. But what if I recognize, just reality is that all these humans have had different experiences, different upbringing, different cultural attitudes and thoughts, and I'm catching them at a moment in their struggle to be okay. And then I can address their behavior, not out of hatred and anger, but out of desire to have a healthier place for all of us. And that might mean it's accountability in jail, or it might be a boundary, or it might be an extra care and something I can help them with. But in this situation, what's that healthy thing to do? And the interesting thing on this is it only benefits us. You think about anybody you have in your life that you don't like, that you have anger towards, or resentment, or something from something they've done to you in the past. Who is suffering? One holding on, right? Suffering's here, not there. And so when we forgive others, we're giving ourselves permission to stop suffering. I don't have to get that pain happened once. I'm making it happen for 10 more years. And then the weirdest thing, which I've pointed out many times, which I found fascinating, is I'm holding a resentment at a person who doesn't exist anywhere but my mind, which is really weird because that person, if they're alive today, well, they're a very different person, right? 10 years later, and they've done lots of different things. But I'm froze somebody in my mind at a moment in time of who they were, have a whole caricature, drug them around my whole life for 10 years. And you bring up his name and I'm pissed off as hell and it hurts and I'm frustrated, especially if I hear he's doing something good. He's not really that way. He's not nice. I know how he's like, and it's just me. It's just me. So it's weird that humans go around angry at people that don't exist, inflicting harm on ourselves for things that are no longer happening. Odd, huh? And then we'll say something like, I'll never forgive them. Yeah, I'm going to hurt myself for the rest of my life. That'll show them. And we don't heal. Yeah. So, this equanimity is starting to just recognize that if we just take a level playing field and start to recognize that everyone we meet, just like us, right? Seeking happiness, just like us, trying to avoid suffering, just like us, has known hardship, struggles, despair, challenges, just like us, are trying to get their needs met, right? Just like us. They deserve some compassion. And people have helped us. I've done harmful things. People have helped me. And they also have the capacity for goodness, even though we may have to look really hard. It's just so, some people may not find it at all in this lifetime. But at the same time, there are people who have come out of, heck, my oldest brother, he was maximum security penitentiary, uh, Gladiator School, California, Tracy Penitentiary. Um, you know, he's just a nice guy, Christian guy, does church thing, reunited with his kids and grandkids, retired, walks, I think, 6 miles a day. Not very scary. And, but at one time, yeah. And so, we don't often question or examine how we perceive others. But with equanimity, what we can start to develop is that everyone, just like me, is valuable and trying to find their way. And separating their actions, their behaviors from their value. Then I can just focus more skillfully on their actions and stand up against unhealthy ones. Compassion doesn't mean we let people do harmful things. Compassion is about reducing suffering. So I'm going to step in the way of harmful actions, right? I'm going to break up a fight. Got to do that quite a few times. And we're going to prevent people from being harmed. And so it's not this passive thing. I think people get confused that way. Allowing people to inflict harm, stay in unhealthy relationships that are harmful, and or engage in behaviors that are harmful is not compassionate. That enables harm. Compassion seeks to remove harm. And so, what's the skillful way to do that in a way that's actually productive? And hatred is not going to be one of those methods. Understanding, connection, sometimes firm boundaries, sometimes accountability. I was talking to, so I just spent time in LA with the uh, ODR, Office of Diversion and Reentry, prisons, so people coming out of felony prison, penitentiary time who have some mental illness. There's a program in LA to help them get housing, get the mental health services, get regulated, get some life skills, and ultimately their own housing. Their success rate is 2 years is like 90%. Pretty amazing, phenomenal. And otherwise, they come out of jail with these mental health issues, don't know how to regulate, don't know things to go back to prison, and all that. So this program is pretty amazing. And anyway, I was there doing a workshop for their that system, and you know, people coming out of an opportunity like that, we're discussing that some people need the prison to finally have the choice to change, right? If you give them too much rope too many times, they die of overdoses. That's what we were sharing. Some people just keep slipping through the cracks. One more chance, and then an overdose and a death. And some accountability and structure, and some, actually led to some opportunities for change. And anyway, it was good to see the dedication of these people uh, helping these individuals find their way. It was really inspiring. I want to go live in South Central LA and work there, but I'm gonna resist that. Okay. It used to be my world to be a part of. But anyway, it's good to see that. So equalizing, this sense of equanimity, I think of the word equal, recognizing the value of others. And then noticing also when somebody's acting in these harmful ways, clearly they are suffering, right? Nobody's yelling at you in anger while they're happy. It doesn't work like that. They're acting in these ways because they're uncomfortable, because they're unhappy. And so from a Buddhist perspective, you know, we all have this disease called samsara, a misunderstanding of how it exists, a conditioned, limited existence. And and some of us, you know, don't have the disease to the what is it, like fourth stage cancer? Is that like the worst? Stage four, right? So a lot of people might have this sort of stage four samsara, and we might have, like a flu or something of samsara. Like, I'm pretty, my heart's pretty open, can do things, care about the neighbor, get angry at so and so, but, I'm not struggling in that way that many are. And they just, when I start to understand that we all have these afflicted states, some just have a more progressed disease than I have. And it's interesting when I look at them that way, then I care for them much easier. Like I see somebody in a wheelchair, yeah, I have compassion. See someone healthy being a jerk, I have no compassion. Person in a wheelchair might be happy and fine. Clearly the jerk's not being so happy, right? No compassion, compassion. This person's doing well. This person's not. So, having that opportunity. And then, working with the people that we see that we're challenged by, why are we so challenged by them? From my side, it's pretty much because I think you should be different. Would you buck up and get with the program? I'll give you a life set of the way I would like you to be. That would be helpful. You can study it. We'll test you on it tomorrow. Uh, Isn't that crazy? I think I know how others should be, and you're not being the way in accordance. And then I look at my own life, and I look at how I've changed over my years. I have very different views on how people I think should be. And, I've learned more. I've changed more and learned more. And so what I think today, well, it's going to probably be different as I become, right? And so just understanding this piece of how we're all interacting together in this very messy thing. And we're all trying to find happiness and we keep bumping into each other. And some people are struggling more so than others. Then it allows for some equanimity in how I care about people while I dislike the actions and I like these actions. But fundamentally, all of that struggle is my own mental state of how I'm relating to those people. I'm suffering and I'm chasing the people I like. And sometimes they dump you. I've had that happen more than once. Not fun. Not fun. Uh, yeah. I have a friend of mine, his wife was leaving him. He literally was like in front of the car, like, don't go. Hanging on the thing. She backed up, hit the brakes, knocked him off, drove off, Yeah. He didn't think he'd ever be happy again. Yeah. He married someone else, had kids, grandkids. Turned out okay. Good thing she didn't run him over. Uh, but in those moments, we get so caught up, right? The world's so big. I can't live without you. I can't this. And then, 5 years later, it's like, who, what? You know, or we ruminate and we get so attached, that I can never be happy again. And all of this is coming from our side of how we're relating to those relationships. But if I recognize that all of you, and this is where we get to, and my teachers at the monastery would say, all other sentient beings are the cause for your enlightenment. And that's back to everyone giving us this opportunity. And the ones that you don't like are showing you your mind the most. They're very helpful. Your friends, they're not so helpful. They don't show your mind. They treat you nice. They give you sour cherries. It's like, what's there to get upset about? And uh, but these afflictive ones, wow, they really show us my mind. And so that was one of the things I often would joke about when you'd go to like an old lama at the monastery and you want to complain about so and so, what they did and all that. And, they listen, you know, compassionately to you. And they say something like, so let me get this straight. Of course, they're got a Tibetan accent. You're upset at the cause for your enlightenment. Is that what you're telling me? And just undercut your whole deal, man. You're not getting any validation. You're upset at the cause for your enlightenment. Then you stop complaining to your teachers because they're just not helpful. And, but, um, it's our minds we get to work with. Now, having said that, that's the mental emotional aspect. That does not remove that we need to put ourselves in healthy situations with healthy people, not be abused, and create good, you know, um, networks of healthy, supportive friends, community, healthy environments so we can grow. A lot of people mistake this attitude of compassion for being able to endure unhealthy situations. And that's not helpful for anyone. So really, some people are not healthy to have in your life. I see their value, but it's not healthy or safe to have them in my life right now. Could be later, maybe. So we still need to really be clear about how we care for each other, and care for each other sometimes is having boundaries. Sometimes it's really nurturing someone. But the commitment is always what's the healthiest possible way to interact with each other? What is the most supportive for us in a healthy environment? Now we're working with loving kindness and compassion. And so it's not, sometimes we have to do hard things and have, those tough conversations out of love, out of health, out of caring. And sometimes we need to swallow our pride and admit we were wrong, and or we did something, and do that as well. But if we recognize that these three buckets of people, friends, strangers, enemies, or people I like, people I don't like, people in between, those labels are applied by me. And on a very simple basis of what you dress like, what you look like, what you did for me or didn't do for me, or what your things are, like, as though I'm here to evaluate the quality of all beings. And those labels can shift pretty easy. We all have had friends that were once very close to that did that thing. Now we don't like them. And then we've had people that we didn't like before, and we kind of get to know them, and they bring you sour cherries, baking a pie, and you're thinking they're awesome. Well, not that we didn't like you. Uh, but just for the record, Dana brought us sour cherries. Yeah. And anyone who would like to be in the good column with us, uh, just saying, uh, sour cherries is helpful. Uh, but that's the way it is. We're so transactional, right? Somebody did something nice, they're good people. Somebody didn't, they're not so good people. And then my friend, right? And this is the analogy I've been using for years and years, but just fascinated me. Is, I can have a good friend for all these years, and then they do that thing. In my case, my best friend took my wife. That was awkward. Yeah, it's a whole story we don't have time for, but it hurt quite a bit. And there's like a whole bunch of love songs about those things. I'm not the first. So, anyone hear that Jim Croce song, Operator? Mm. Yeah, it covers that. Anyway, I digress, or do I? Is that person that had been a friend that one thing they did, or the hundreds of other things they did when they were your friend? Right? We did a lot of things there. Yeah, but they did this one thing, so now they're that. And I disregard all the good things. It's weird. And then, and then somebody can just be kind of rough for us, and then they finally do that really nice thing. We open up our heart, and then we can have a relationship. And so it's all very fluid, but our mind will get them fixed and then reify this person is like this person is like that. And then every time we see them, we just stick the label on. There's so and so. So and so is a good guy, and all those labels keep shifting. But we're the ones doing it. Only on this much that I see about a person, which is fascinating. Robert Redford recently passed, right? Now, I don't know Robert Redford, never hung out with him, but I thought he was a pretty swell guy. I got to use the word swell in a sentence. That hasn't happened in probably a decade. Good guy, right? I've never met him. All I know about Robert Redford are some things I've read, some interviews I've seen, and some movies. But I have a whole caricature about what a wonderful guy is, but I've seen that much. Likewise, like with George Bush, right? Well, I know this about him, but I've never, I haven't even seen the painting of the little white dog, but maybe I should look. And So we know someone for a moment based on something that somebody else told us, and we don't even have direct things, and we have a whole thing built up in our mind about how someone is. I mean, Bill Cosby's a real interesting example. He was America's father, and then he wasn't, you know. And what do we know about anyone, right? And then they all change. I've changed. And so this is the key, is to start noting how we label likable, unlikable, and this sort of neutral thing. And can we start to be a little more interested in the people we don't really know? Can we reduce the animosity towards some of the people we struggle with and kind of poke around, see if there's something good about them? There's an old, uh, Dalai Lama teaches this. He says, always recognize that everyone you meet is, better than you in something, right? And, I think that's true. All of you know a lot of things I don't know better than me, a lot of things, right? And so somebody asks Dalai Lama, do you sometimes have trouble finding that somebody's better than you at something? Dalai Lama's just busts up. Because, sometimes it's hard, and I have to think, they have nice hair. He's bald. But he's looking, and so, what are these qualities that we can look for in others just to see that, beyond uh, their disease, their conditioning, their struggle, that underneath that, there was once a little kid who, just wanted to be loved and cared for, wanted to be good, and all this stuff happened. So the meditation then, I'm curious what she brings up in the meditation. Would be to, what I'm going to invite everybody to do is start noticing how we label people, right? When we start having those feelings. And can we see beyond the label? Because that person that I knew a year ago is not who I'm looking at today. We're always in this state of becoming. And can we equalize this field a bit? So I'm just going to read what her advice is. Start by visualizing in front of you someone you like, such as a close relative or friend. Check your reasons for liking this person. Is it partly because they are nice to you and behave in ways you approve of? If so, are those good reasons for liking them and wanting to be close to them? Next to your friend, visualize someone you dislike. Check your reasons for feeling that dislike for that person. If it's because they're nasty to you or you don't approve of the way they behave, are those good reasons for disliking someone or treating them badly or wishing that they suffer? Then visualize beside the other two someone you feel indifferent toward, like a supermarket cashier. Nah, we're on the same wavelength there. Or a stranger you pass in the street. I tried to pass a stranger in the street the other here. He's from out of town. He just starts talking to me. He's great. He's from Missouri. He's from Missouri. Visiting his daughter. Had his dog out. Love the fall colors. We had this whole conversation. That's the kind of thing. It's just like, how you doing? What's going on? Nice day. Have a little nice conversation. But it's so easy to walk by all these people. Uh, his daughter's a teacher, by the way. Lives in the teaching housing. What else you want to know? We got a few more things. But now I have a relationship with her. I had to leave, but sweet dog. All right, so we've got the person we like, the person we don't like, and why. And now this person that we're neutral towards, cashier, stranger you pass in the street. Why do you feel this way, either liking or disliking them? Is it partly because this person has not done anything helpful or harmful to you, right? Holding the visualization of these three in front of you, check if it feels right to have such different emotions and ways of behaving toward them. Reflect that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are not biased. They have equal love and compassion for all beings without exception, like the feelings parents have for their children. If you wish to follow in their footsteps, develop bodhicitta, and attain enlightenment, you also need to open your heart to every living being. Equalizing your feelings towards others is an essential first step. You can start by contemplating that relationships are not permanent. We tend to believe that a friend will always be a friend, an enemy will always be an enemy, and we will never get close to a stranger. Think again. Did you ever have the experience of a friend becoming an enemy, or an enemy becoming a friend, or a total stranger becoming one of your best friends? That's probably right. Relationships are contingent upon causes, conditions, and circumstances, and since these change, relationships can also change. Focus on the person you like and imagine this person doing something hurtful or unacceptable. Would your feelings toward this person change? It's funny how we'll tend to make an excuse for them. Yeah, it's just Jim. He's, known him a long time. He's all right. Then turn your attention to the one you dislike. Imagine this person doing something kind or helpful, such as praising you or for something you did or helping you with your work. Does this cause you to open up to the person and view them differently? Have you ever had the experience of getting to know someone you didn't like at first and gradually become more friendly with them? This can happen again. So, is it right to cling to the idea that this person is an enemy and will be like that forever? And then, so we move on to the person we're indifferent to. This relationship could turn either positive or negative, but since we're trying to develop positive feelings, imagine the person doing something helpful, such as giving you your mail, that's the mailman, and the right directions when you're lost, or returning your wallet after you dropped it absent-mindedly. How would this affect your feelings towards this person? So I'm just going to pause there because we're running out a bit, but you get the idea, right? We start really bringing to mind how we label people and how they can be different, and ultimately, though, we'll tend to get to a point where it's not that they're good or bad; they're just either doing what I like or don't like. You know, I mean, there are people doing really harmful things, right? Murder and things like that. Those behaviors. Uh, but even those behaviors can change. Uh, there's a lot of stories of people who murdered people out helping now in the world. But if we start to just reflect on this capacity we have to live more in a more healthy way with ourselves and others, uh, dealing with their behaviors and not devaluing them, not hating the person, bringing that dislike towards the behavior, then we're going to be a lot more skillful. And then we're going to suffer a lot less, right? This is also a very compassionate activity for ourselves. Why am I suffering that somebody else is struggling? So the practice this week then is to start to notice our labels, and when we have these feelings of exaggerated attachment or exaggerated animosity, and why is it hard to be around somebody? Can I see them differently? And let's start seeing if we can recognize and value the people in our life as valuable, and notice where the difficulty is coming from. It could be the behavior. A lot of times it's not even the behavior. Because once I've labeled someone annoying, they don't even have to do anything annoying. They just come in the room, I'm pretty annoyed, right? It's like the behavior's not even there anymore, but the label is. And man, I don't want to be around this person who's not doing anything annoying because I find them annoying. It's crazy. They're just hanging out, maybe wanting to talk to me. That's really annoying. Another human being wants to talk to me. And they just go on. So another human being that wants to talk to me. It's how am I relating to this? Wow. So this becomes the practice for the week is to see if we can work with that equanimity. Then once we have a more level playing ground, then we can move towards these stages. And then the other piece here is just to be real with ourselves. This little talk is not going to make you get along with everybody you don't like. You still might get frustrated and label people. Could happen. Uh, and just meet ourselves where we're at. Yeah, I'm working with this. This is a journey. It's a journey. And, people have taken the Bodhisattva vows, and it's like, yeah, I want to see all beings, help all beings. But, let's start with being nice to our neighbor. Maybe, listening to that person I don't want to listen to, kind of work there. And kind of move our way through this process, meeting ourselves with where we're at. Okay, so that's about all I have on that. Of late, you guys have not been peppering me with questions, which is killing the back and forth, by the way, the dialogue. Okay, Denali.
Thanks, John. I found this.
I can't hear you. That might be
Oh.
because I have my speaker muted.
Okay.
Try saying something now.
All right. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna have to do something.
Okay.
I'm going to switch to this. All right, now go ahead.
All right.
Still not.
Yes.
Well, maybe you don't get to ask me questions.
Put it in the chat.
Speaker.
I probably
Should
anything good.
All right. It's probably a really good question.
No, probably not.
Let me check one more setting. We'll give it a shot.
All right.
Oh, I see why. Okay, try it now.
Okay. Yes.
You're still talking, aren't you?
Yes.
Oh, hang on. I'm still almost there. This is fun. Okay, now I got you.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's more of a comment that I've noticed I've been sitting through this whole session, just my blood pressure. Every time you say George Bush, I'm just like, no, don't go there in your mind. And I'm really glad you said at the end of the talk that, I can tell myself I'm working with this person who shall not be named. And when I kept thinking everybody's quiet because there's this big elephant in the room. But when I try to think of what has come out of all of what we're surviving these days, I can say that I am connecting with people in my community in a way that is so positive that I can be thankful for that. And that's about all I've got for right now. So I just wanted to say that out loud. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. And Ashley.
Yeah, I was kind of reflecting on how the first being I have to have that care for is myself, because I think I put myself down a lot more than I would ever put anyone else down.
You're not alone in that. Very common Western trait. Self-critical. Yeah. Yeah, we're good at that. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Ashley. Dana. Yeah.
So on the subject of being compassionate to somebody who is potentially unkind to you or harmful, I find that it's hard to find that line between self-compassion, like Ashley just brought up, compared to compassion for the other person,
Mhm.
or maybe a fear of enabling behavior.
Mhm.
If I am continually kind and compassionate. So I'm just wondering if you can speak to that at all.
Yeah. So compassion's always around the healthy interaction. So if somebody's going to, talk to me in an unhealthy way or whatever, and, let's just say a conversation, they're blah, blah, blah. I can easily say, you know what you're sharing, I know it's important, but I'm not going to have this conversation with you. I'd want us to have healthy conversation. If you want to talk about problem solving or something, happy to have that conversation. But I'm not going to go down this road with you. And I respect you too much for that. So I have a boundary, but I'm not having to tolerate an unhealthy verbal attack of sorts, right?
But do you get to a place where you're just not affected and you don't need those boundaries?
No, boundaries are good because you're helping them. If people don't set the boundary, they don't know they're inappropriate, right? So having a healthy boundary, but that's the thing, right? Sometimes I can be having all these boundaries and I'm being real judgmental versus just listening. That's the nuance of really what's a healthy interaction here. Am I being overly reactive or not? Is somebody doing something really harmful? Or I just let them know. But um, having an unhealthy conversation or people, get on those things. It's pretty, it's okay to say, I'm not going to participate in that. And but when you want to talk about this or that, I'm here. You know, uh, so it's always that skillfulness. Like what's the healthiest way? The doormat is not compassionate, right? Because I'm getting harmed and they're continuing a harmful behavior and I'm not helping. It's like raising kids. I had some structure for my daughters, right? And some accountability, but it's not because I didn't love them. It's just, you did this, well, here's the result of that activity. You're gonna be writing me some essays sitting in your room all weekend, and so but that we have consequences. No consequences. They're not reflecting behavior. So it's good to have that understanding. I'm setting them out of care and compassion. It's not compassion to allow unhealthy, harmful behaviors. Yeah. So we still need that. What happens though is we don't get as affected by the behavior. We just see an unhealthy behavior and we go, what can we do? Yeah.
Wasn't this part of your question too? Like, do you get to the point where you don't get affected by it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say at the end.
Yeah.
Is at some point you do not get as emotionally affected because you're just seeing their suffering. So when I see her suffering, I'm more like the doctor. What's the medicine here, right? And what's the healthy interaction, which could be a boundary, or I can't have you in my life right now, or let's go have some pizza and talk about this, right? But it's about that. So we're not, because how people treat us is a reflection of their own struggle or health, right? If they're treating us well, but it's always a reflection of that. And so understand that we don't take it so personally. Yeah. After a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Kimberly.
Hi,
Hi.
this is really helpful. Um, I think I spoke before about that I moved into a wonderful place, but this building in the condominium and in the condominium community, building 6, uh, has a civil war going on. And there are hurt people board member or the board president. It has to do with dogs and rules. And there's tears from residents who hate the president. There's nasty emails being posted by the elevator. And I'm grateful that I was put in this, that I'm encountering this. And I'm trying not to let it so much sadden me as just be curious about it and I keep trying to come up with a solution or mediation or but I'm surrounded by so much pain and hurt. And I am doing I guess Tonglen, breathing in the pain and letting it out. There's so many people in this building. And I guess I'm just in the middle of it. I don't know really what I'm asking for. Or I'm just sharing because it's big. It's big. And there's people who have lived here for years. And the board president her son passed away in January, and she's also suicidal. Oh, it's really something. And I heard what you said by just trying to have a calm mind. And I think part of it is looking for opportunities to say something, to demonstrate love and kindness. Anyway, I guess I'm sort of rambling, but I appreciate being able to talk. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. And we'll wrap up on this, but what I would encourage is really just focusing on the loving kindness, not so much the Tonglen, just being a caring, loving presence in that environment to everybody. When I, many of you know, I taught like high school, North Long Beach, Compton, very, big conflicts and different, different types of gang violence, different levels of teachers, different, just a whole mix of 3,000 people coming together. Actually, yeah, about 35. Is just being a presence of care and seeing people in the eye and just being a healthy, good example. And it's amazing how that can have an impact, the calm, but from loving and kindness and knowing people have their struggles and just being as healthy and as caring in a meaningful way, I think has a huge impact in environments like that. That's what we did in the youth placement facility as well, as people appreciate that there's one person who's not on either side of the Civil War, who just is a kind, caring person who'll ask you how you're doing, and that really has, I think, a big impact. And it's a lot less demanding than trying to take on all the suffering or fixing anything. All you're doing is trying to be a healthy, caring individual for everyone that you're coming in contact with. And you're not on anybody's team.
Thank you so much. I was trying to solve it before you said that.
Yeah. Not probably gonna solve that one. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit, time, and energy that those who care to for the goodness that we're bringing to ourselves and into the world. Oh, well, the last comment I want to make, when we talk about being didn't I say the last comment? I was going to say like a comment ago. Is when we want to be compassionate towards all sentient beings, remember you are one of them. You are one of them. To always include ourselves. Always include ourselves. That's what I didn't want. That's to close it out saying. Okay, so dedication. So a lot of things we could have been doing on a Wednesday evening, but we've come together to talk about compassion, loving kindness, understanding others, being of benefit to the world, and being a healthy, good friend to ourselves, engaging in meaningful activities that are supportive for ourselves and others. An incredible amount of merit has been cultivated. It's nice to dedicate this for the benefit of all beings, that our efforts and the efforts of countless others around the world who are also engaged in compassion, loving, caring activities. We collectively dedicate all of this merit for the benefit of all beings, that our efforts find its way into the world, that reduces suffering and helps people find their liberation. And for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may shed any obscurations that prevent us from opening up our hearts and recognizing our own primordial wisdom, our own Buddha nature, so we can be of greatest benefit to all. With that, those who care to can join me in the formal dedication. By this merit may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering.
sufferings.
May the precious
May
Bodhi
the
mind, not yet born, arise and grow.
and grow.
May that born
May the
have no
have no
decline, but
decline,
increase
but increase
forevermore.
forevermore.
Dare do dare, do re so ha. Om dare do dare, do re so ha.